Jordan Hale had built 12 successful restaurants, but he hadn't visited his first diner in 15 years. So when he walked in wearing a gray hoodie and baseball cap, ordering the cheapest thing on the menu, just toast, nobody recognized the owner sitting at table 9. Then he heard it, a whisper from behind the counter, casual and cruel, about how customers like him weren't worth real service. In that moment, Jordan realized something had gone terribly wrong in the place he'd built on dignity and respect. What the staff didn't know was that their whispered judgment had just sealed their fate. And the exhausted young waitress they were tormenting, she was about to become the center of a transformation none of them saw coming. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed. Jordan Hale sat in his dusty pickup truck across the street from a place he hadn't visited in almost 15 years. The engine ticked as it cooled, filling the silence with a rhythm that matched his accelerating heartbeat. At 42 years old, he built an empire of upscale restaurants across 3 states, each one bearing his signature attention to detail and commitment to excellence. But this place, this humble diner with its faded red awning and flickering neon sign, was where it all began. He adjusted the plain gray hoodie he'd deliberately chosen that morning, tugging the baseball cap lower over his eyes. The jeans were old, worn at the knees, paired with scuffed work boots he'd found in his garage. Nobody would recognize him like this. That was exactly the point. Jordan didn't want to be the CEO today. He didn't want the rehearsed smiles, the nervous energy, the careful words people used around someone with power. He wanted to feel his diner the way his customers felt it, to see what really happened when nobody thought the boss was watching. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cracked parking lot as Jordan finally stepped out of the truck. He pocketed his keys and crossed the street with measured steps, each one bringing back memories he'd buried under years of business meetings and expansion plans. This was his first location, the one he'd scraped together with student loans, family savings, and more sleepless nights than he could count. He'd poured his soul into these walls, built it on principles of fairness and dignity for every person who walked through the door, whether they were serving food or eating it. The bell above the entrance jingled as he pushed through, a sound so familiar it made his chest tighten. The interior hit him like a photograph come alive. Checkered black and white floors, still gleaming despite their age. Red vinyl booths lined the windows, their surfaces cracked but clean. Chrome stools stood at attention along the counter, catching the morning light. Everything looked almost exactly as he remembered it, frozen in time like a museum exhibit of his younger dreams. But something felt wrong. Jordan couldn't pinpoint it immediately, but the atmosphere carried a weight that hadn't existed in his memory. The handful of customers sat hunched over their meals, eating quietly, quickly, as if they wanted to finish and leave. Nobody laughed. Nobody lingered over coffee with easy conversation. The staff moved through their routines with mechanical precision, but their shoulders were tight, their smiles forced. It was like watching people go through the motions of a play they'd rehearsed too many times. He chose a booth near the window and slid onto the vinyl seat. The material squeaked under his weight, and he positioned himself so he could see both the counter and most of the dining room. Old habits from his early days managing this very floor, when he'd learned to read a room's energy by watching how people moved through it. A young black woman approached his table, and Jordan's observant eye immediately caught the details that others might miss. She was 26, maybe 27, with her hair pulled back in a neat bun that looked both professional and exhausted. Her uniform was clean, but faded in a way that spoke of too many washes, the fabric thin at the elbows. But it was her face that stopped him. Despite the smile she wore, sweat beaded along her forehead, even though the diner's air conditioning hummed steadily overhead. Her hands trembled slightly as she carried water glasses on a small tray, the ice cubes rattling softly. "Good morning," she said, and her voice carried a softness that reminded Jordan of someone trying very hard to be pleasant despite being worn down to the bone. "My name's Maya. I'll be taking care of you today. Can I start you off with some coffee?" "Water's fine," Jordan replied, keeping his voice neutral and friendly. "Thank you, Maya." She set the glass down carefully, produced a laminated menu from under her arm, and placed it in front of him. "Take your time looking that over. I'll be right back to take your order." As Maya turned toward the counter, Jordan heard it. a voice low and sharp, cutting through the ambient noise of clattering dishes and sizzling griddles. A white man in a cook's uniform stood behind the counter, his arms crossed, speaking to another server with deliberate loudness that suggested he wanted to be overheard. "Table 9 ain't worth wasting good service on," the cook said, his eyes flicking toward Jordan's booth. "Grab the cheap toast and keep moving." Table 9. Jordan's booth. The words landed like ice water down his spine. He kept his expression carefully neutral, but every muscle in his body tensed. The cook, whose name tag read Rick, smirked as he said it, and the other server, a white woman in her 30s, giggled nervously before hurrying away with an order. Maya's back stiffened. Jordan saw it clearly, the way her shoulders went rigid for just a moment before she forced them to relax. She'd heard it too, but she didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge it, just kept walking with her head high and that tired smile still plastered on her face. She returned a moment later with his water refilled, though he hadn't asked for it. "Have you decided what you'd like?" Her voice remained soft, but Jordan heard something underneath it now. Fear, or maybe resignation. The sound of someone who'd learned that fighting back cost more than staying silent. Jordan made a deliberate choice. He ordered the simplest, cheapest item on the entire menu. "Just toast," he said, watching her reaction carefully. "Butter on the side." Relief flickered across Maya's face so quickly he almost missed it. "White or wheat?" "Wheat's fine." She wrote it down and hurried back toward the counter. Jordan watched as she clipped the order to the circular wheel above the cooking line. Rick glanced at it, then looked directly at Jordan's booth. His eye roll was theatrical, meant to be seen. He turned to another cook and said, loud enough that half the diner could hear, "These kind always want cheap food and still leave nothing. These kind." Jordan's jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. He wrapped his hands around the water glass to keep them steady, to keep from standing up and confronting the situation right then and there. But he couldn't. Not yet. He needed to see more, to understand the full scope of what was happening in his diner. Around him, other employees reacted in small, telling ways. A young busboy, barely out his teens, dipped his head and suddenly became very interested in wiping down an already clean table. Another waitress glanced nervously between Rick and Maya, then quickly looked away when their eyes met. The hostess by the door shifted uncomfortably, pretending to organize menus that didn't need organizing. Everyone knew something was wrong. Everyone felt it, and everyone was too afraid to say anything. When Maya brought his toast, she set the plate down with care that bordered on reverence, as if she were handling fine china instead of a simple breakfast order. "I'm sorry for the wait," she said, though Jordan had checked his watch and knew it had been less than 5 minutes. He looked up at her, really looked at her, and spoke quietly. "You don't need to apologize for him." Maya's eyes widened. For a second, genuine fear flashed across her face. She glanced quickly over her shoulder toward the counter, then back at Jordan. When she spoke, her voice dropped to barely more than a whisper. "Please don't say anything. Please. Not today." Before Jordan could respond, a presence loomed over their booth. A middle-aged white man in a manager's polo shirt appeared, his expression stern and unwelcoming. His name tag identified him as Greg Tully, floor manager. Greg didn't greet Jordan, didn't ask if everything was satisfactory. Instead, he focused entirely on Maya, his voice sharp and carrying. "Pick up the pace, or your section is gone again." Again, that single word told Jordan volumes. Maya's face flushed. "Yes, sir, Mr. Tully." Greg walked away without another word, leaving Maya standing by Jordan's table with her notepad clutched in trembling hands. She didn't meet Jordan's eyes as she asked if he needed anything else. He told her no, thank you, and she disappeared quickly, moving to another table where an elderly couple sat waiting. Jordan ate his toast slowly, methodically, while his mind raced. Something serious was happening here, something that went beyond one rude cook or one harsh manager. This felt systemic, practice, like a routine that had been running for so long everyone had learned their roles in it. He pulled out his phone and sent a text message to his executive assistant. "Cancel my afternoon meetings. I am staying." Then he settled in to watch. For the next hour, Jordan became a student of his own diner. He ordered coffee, then a refill, then another. He asked for water. He requested extra napkins. Each small interaction gave him a chance to observe, to catalog, to understand. Maya never stopped moving. She covered her own section plus parts of others, running between tables with efficiency born of necessity. She refilled drinks without being asked, cleared plates promptly, handled a crying child with gentle patience that made the young mother visibly relax. She did everything right, everything Jordan had once trained his first employees to do. But Rick watched her with open hostility. When she passed the counter, he made comments just loud enough for her to hear. Moving slow today. Customers are waiting. Some people just don't have the hustle. Each one designed to chip away at her, to make her feel inadequate despite the fact that she was outworking everyone else on the floor. The other server, whose name tag read Celine, seemed to have an unspoken alliance with Rick. She chatted with him easily, laughed at his jokes, and worked her section at a leisurely pace that nobody criticized. When Maya approached the counter to pick up an order, Celine stepped in front of her to grab a different plate, forcing Maya to wait. A small thing, barely noticeable, but Jordan noticed. Then Jordan saw something that made his blood simmer. Each server brought their tips to a single glass jar near the register. He watched Maya place a handful of bills inside, the result of an hour's work across multiple tables. But minutes later, Rick reached over and emptied the entire jar, pouring the cash into a locked steel drawer behind the counter. When he redistributed the money, Maya received only a few small bills while Celine walked away with a noticeably thicker stack. Jordan's fingers tightened around his coffee mug. Tip pooling wasn't illegal, but what he just witnessed looked more like tip theft. His attention sharpened when he saw Greg pull Maya into the hallway that led to the restrooms. Jordan couldn't hear them from his booth, but he didn't need to. Greg's body language was aggressive, leaning in close, pointing his finger. Maya kept her head down, nodding, her shoulders curling inward like she was trying to make herself smaller. When she returned to the floor, her eyes were red. An elderly black man at the counter, someone who looked like a regular based on how the hostess had greeted him, caught Jordan's eye. The man leaned over slightly and spoke in a low voice. That girl works harder than all of them combined. They don't like her, so they make sure she don't shine. How long has this been going on? Jordan asked quietly. The old man, whose name Jordan would later learn was Mr. Carter, shook his head sadly. Months, maybe longer. Used to be a good place. Something changed when the new management came in. Jordan filed that information away, another piece of a puzzle he was rapidly assembling. Near the hostess stand, two employees spoke in hushed tones, unaware that Jordan sat close enough to hear. One of them, a young woman who'd been seating customers, whispered to another server, "Greg takes hours off her time card. Says she's too slow and doesn't earn the full shift. Wage theft. In his diner. In the place he'd built on principles of fairness." Jordan's hand moved slowly toward his phone. He opened his text messages and typed carefully. Need immediate access to payroll records, schedules, and time card for store one. Last 12 months. Confidential. The response came quickly. On it. Should have everything by tonight. He pocketed the phone and continued watching. Maya brought water to a table where a man had spilled his drink. She cleaned it up without complaint, without making the customer feel embarrassed, just handled it with quiet competence. At another booth, she noticed a woman struggling to read the menu in the dim lighting and quietly adjusted the window blind to let in more sun. Small acts of thoughtfulness that cost nothing but meant everything. This was the kind of employee Jordan had always dreamed of hiring. The kind who understood that hospitality wasn't just about delivering food. It was about making people feel seen, valued, cared for. And they were crushing her. Jordan decided to run a test. He caught Rick's attention and politely asked for some extra jam packets. Rick looked at him like he'd requested the moon. "I'm not your servant," he muttered, loud enough for Jordan to hear, but quiet enough to maintain deniability. 10 minutes later, a white woman at the counter asked Rick for the same thing. "Of course, sweetheart," Rick said warmly, his whole demeanor transforming. He produced the jam immediately, added a smile, and told her to let him know if she needed anything else. Jordan memorized that interaction, added it to the growing list. Late in the lunch rush, Greg pulled Maya aside again. This time Jordan was close enough to hear every word. "You're making the place look bad," Greg hissed. "Smile more. Act like you want to be here." Maya, who'd been smiling all morning despite everything, just nodded. "Yes, sir." Jordan watched her walk away, watched her paste that smile back on, watched her greet the next customer with warmth that should have been genuine, but now felt like survival. He was about to stand up, about to blow his cover, and end this nightmare immediately when he heard it again. The whisper that had started everything. Rick leaned toward Celine behind the counter, speaking in that carrying stage whisper designed to be overheard. If he can't afford more than toast, he should eat somewhere else. People like him dragged the place down. People like him. Jordan stood slowly, deliberately. The movement caught Maya's attention from across the room. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe, or fear that he was about to cause a scene that would somehow get blamed on her. He walked to her station and spoke quietly, so only she could hear. "Do you like working here?" Maya froze. Her eyes darted to the counter, to Greg's office, back to Jordan. When she finally answered, her voice trembled. "I love serving people. I wish things were fair." Something in her voice, some combination of hope and exhaustion and barely restrained pain, made Jordan's decision for him. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a business card. Not his fancy corporate one, just a plain white card with a phone number written in pen. "If you ever need anything," he said, pressing it into her hand, "call that number." Maya looked confused, but took the card, slipping it into her apron pocket. Jordan returned to his booth and pulled out his phone one more time. He opened his recording app and aimed it discreetly at the counter, capturing the next 20 minutes of interactions. Greg pocketing tips, Rick's commentary, Celine's preferential treatment. Every piece of evidence he'd need to dismantle this corruption from the inside. As he finally prepared to leave, Jordan caught Maya's eye one more time. She approached his table to clear his dishes, and he spoke softly. "Maybe fairness is closer than you think." She looked at him strangely, like she wanted to believe him but couldn't quite let herself hope. Jordan left a $20 bill under his coffee mug, far more than his toast cost, and walked out of the diner. But he didn't drive away. Instead, he sat in his truck, opened his laptop, and began drafting a very long email to his corporate HR director, his legal team, and his operations manager. The subject line read, "Immediate investigation required, Store 1." He attached the video recordings, the photos he'd taken of the tip jar situation, and a detailed timeline of every incident he'd witnessed. Then he added a single line at the bottom. "I'll be returning tomorrow, in person, to handle this myself." Jordan closed the laptop and stared at the diner through his windshield. 15 years ago, he'd stood in that same building and made a promise to himself that any business bearing his name would treat people with dignity. He'd broken that promise by trusting the wrong people to uphold it. Tomorrow, he'd start fixing that mistake. But tonight, he had evidence to review, policies to examine, and a plan to build. Because Maya Coleman deserved better. Every employee in that diner deserved better. And Jordan Hale was about to remind everyone exactly whose name was on the deed. He started his truck and pulled away from the curb, but his mind stayed behind in that diner, replaying every whisper, every dismissive glance, every moment of quiet cruelty he'd witnessed. The toast had been cold. The coffee had been bitter. But the truth he'd uncovered was crystal clear. And tomorrow, everything would change. Jordan returned the next morning, but this time he didn't park across the street. He pulled into the lot deliberately, early enough that the breakfast rush hadn't started, but late enough that the opening crew would be in full swing. The sun was just beginning to warm the asphalt, casting long shadows across the checkered floors visible through the wide front windows. He wore the same gray hoodie, the same worn jeans, the same baseball cap pulled low. But everything else had changed. His phone now contained 12 months of payroll records, scheduling documents, customer complaint logs, and incident reports his team had compiled through the night. Every discrepancy, every red flag, every suspicious pattern now lived in his pocket, organized and ready. The bell jingled as he entered. Several staff members looked up, some with recognition, others with the wary glances reserved for customers who'd complained before. Maya stood at the counter rolling silverware into napkins, her movements mechanical and tired. When she saw him, something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or concern that yesterday's quiet customer had returned. "Good morning," she said, approaching with that same exhausted smile. "Back for more toast." Jordan allowed himself a small smile. Maybe something different today, but first coffee. Black, coming right up. As Maya headed to the coffee station, Jordan chose a different seat this time, a booth closer to the kitchen, where he could see and hear more of what happened behind the scenes. The morning prep crew worked in organized chaos, calling out orders, flipping eggs, sliding plates across the stainless steel counter. But underneath the normal restaurant rhythm, he heard the same undercurrent of tension from yesterday. A young man in a busboy uniform emerged from the back, carrying a tub of clean dishes. Jordan recognized him from yesterday, the one who'd kept his head down when Rick made his comments. The kid looked barely 19, with nervous energy that suggested he was still new enough to be scared of making mistakes. Jordan caught his eye and nodded in a friendly way. The busboy hesitated, then nodded back before hurrying to put away plates. Maya returned with his coffee, setting it down carefully. "Do you know what you like to eat? Or do you need a few minutes?" "Actually," Jordan said quietly, "I wanted to ask you something. How long have you worked here?" Maya blinked, surprised by the personal question. "About 14 months. Why? Just curious. You're good at what you do. Really good." A genuine smile broke through her tired expression, brief but real. "Thank you. That means a lot." She paused, glancing toward the kitchen. "Most days I wonder if anyone notices." "They notice," Jordan said. "Trust me." Before Maya could respond, Greg emerged from the back office, scanning the dining room with the territorial awareness of someone constantly looking for problems to correct. His eyes landed on Maya, standing at Jordan's table, and his expression hardened. "Maya, the busser needs help with Section 2. "I'll be right there," Maya replied. "Now, please." Maya's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but she nodded and hurried away. Greg watched her go, then disappeared back into his office without acknowledging Jordan's presence at all. Jordan sipped his coffee and waited. Patience was a skill he'd learned in his early days, when building a business meant watching, listening, and understanding before acting. He needed more than yesterday's observations. He needed conversations, confirmations, details that would give him the complete picture. 20 minutes later, the young busboy passed near Jordan's booth. Jordan spoke casually, not looking directly at him. "Hey, can I ask you something?" The kid stopped, nervous. Sure. "What's your name?" "Luis." "Luis M. Jordan." He extended his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Luis shook it. "You've been working here long?" "About 8 months." Luis glanced toward the kitchen, clearly uncomfortable with prolonged conversation during his shift. "It's okay," Jordan said quietly. "I'm not going to get you in trouble. I just noticed something yesterday and wondered if you could help me understand." Luis shifted his weight. "What kind of something?" "The waitress who's been helping me, Maya. She seems to work harder than everyone else, but she also seems to get treated differently. Am I wrong about that?" Luis's eyes widened slightly. He looked around to make sure no one was listening, then leaned in a bit. "You're not wrong. They take her best tables away and give them to Celine. They say it's customer preference, but that's not true. Maya gets better tips because she's better at the job, so they make sure she gets fewer opportunities." "Who's they?" "Greg, Rick, sometimes Celine. It's like they decided Maya shouldn't succeed, so they make up reasons to hold her back." Jordan's expression remained neutral, but inside, anger coiled tighter. "Does corporate know?" Luis laughed bitterly. "Greg is corporate, as far as we're concerned. He writes all the reports, controls all the communication. If you complain, it goes to him, and then suddenly your schedule gets worse or your hours get cut." "What about Maya specifically? What else happens to her?" Luis hesitated, wrestling with whether to say more. Finally, he spoke quietly. "Her schedule is impossible. Greg changes her shifts constantly, sometimes with only a day's notice. She can't get a second job because she never knows when she'll be working. Meanwhile, Celine and the others get the same shifts every week, the good ones where tips are highest. Why doesn't Maya quit? She needs the money. Her grandmother has medical bills. Maya works doubles every weekend, picks up every shift she can, and still barely makes enough. She told me once that she can't afford to quit until she finds something else, but she's too exhausted to even look." Jordan nodded slowly, processing. "Thank you for telling me, Luis. I appreciate your honesty." Luis straightened, looking worried. "You're not going to say I told you anything, right? I need this job. I'm trying to save for college." "Your name won't come up," Jordan assured him. "I promise." Luis nodded and hurried away, leaving Jordan alone with his coffee and his growing file of evidence. Throughout the morning, Jordan continued his observation. He watched as Maya handled a difficult customer with grace, a man complaining that his eggs were overcooked even though they looked perfect. She apologized, took the plate back, and returned with a fresh order and a smile. The customer, mollified, left her a decent tip. But Jordan also watched as Rick deliberately slowed down Maya's orders while rushing through Celine's. When Maya called out, "Order up for table 6, Rick made her wait 5 extra minutes while he finished 3 other tickets that came in after hers. Maya stood at the counter, her foot tapping anxiously, knowing her customers were wondering why their food took so long. Greg appeared and immediately blamed her. "Why is table 6 complaining about wait time?" "The order just came up," Maya said quietly. "Then you should have put it in faster." Jordan's hands clenched under the table. He'd seen enough of Greg's management style to recognize it. Arbitrary criticism designed to undermine rather than improve. The kind of leadership that destroyed morale and drove good employees away. During a brief lull, Jordan noticed Maya rubbing her right wrist, wincing slightly. When she caught him watching, she quickly lowered her hand and smiled as if nothing was wrong. "Everything okay?" Jordan asked when she came to refill his coffee. "Oh, fine. Just a little sore. Happens when you're on your feet all day." "How many hours did you work this week?" Maya paused, calculating. 52, I think. Maybe 54. I lose track. "That's a lot." "It's necessary," she said simply, and the resignation in her voice spoke volumes. After she walked away, Jordan opened his phone and pulled up the payroll records his assistant had sent. He scrolled through Maya's time cards and his jaw tightened. According to the system, Maya had worked 40 hours this week, 12 fewer than she'd just claimed. Someone was editing her time. He took a screenshot and added it to his evidence folder. Near the lunch rush, Jordan moved his observation closer to the kitchen. He stood near the counter, pretending to look at the dessert case, but really watching the prep line. That's when he saw Rick pull 3 packages from behind the fresh stock, ground beef with expiration dates from 2 weeks ago. Rick unwrapped them quickly, mixed the expired meat with fresh and formed burger patties. Jordan's stomach turned. Health code violations. Food safety risks. And for what? To save a few dollars? He moved casually toward the kitchen entrance, as if looking for the restroom, his phone camera recording discreetly. He captured Rick tossing an invoice into the trash, then watched as the cook pocketed cash for what looked like a vendor payment. Inventory theft. Added to the list. When Jordan returned to his seat, a couple 2 booths over was complaining loudly. Their sandwiches had arrived cold, the bread soggy. Greg appeared immediately and, without even checking with the kitchen, pointed at Maya. "This is your section. Why wasn't the food hot?" "I brought it out as soon as it came up," Maya said, her voice strained. "Then you need to communicate better with the kitchen." The couple looked uncomfortable now, realizing their complaint was being used to humiliate the waitress. The man spoke up. "It's not her fault. The food was cold when we got it." Greg ignored him. "Maya, comp their meal and do better next time." Maya nodded, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and hurried away. Jordan watched the interaction with clinical detachment, filing away every detail, every inflection, every power play. He texted his assistant. "Pull the last 12 months of customer feedback for this location. Need exact numbers." The response came quickly. On it. As the lunch rush peaked, Jordan witnessed the tip jar ritual again. Maya placed a substantial amount of cash inside. He'd watched her receive at least $60 in tips over the past 2 hours. But when Rick emptied the jar, he counted out only $15 and handed it to Maya. Celine received 30. The rest disappeared into that locked drawer. Jordan stood up and walked calmly to the counter. "Excuse me," he said to Rick. "I'm curious about something. How does the tip pool work here?" Rick barely looked at him. "It's distributed fairly based on performance." "And who determines performance?" "Management." "I see." Jordan glanced at the locked drawer. "And that's where the tips are kept." Rick's expression shifted to annoyance. "Is there a problem?" "Just asking questions." Greg materialized from the office, moving quickly to intercept what he clearly saw as a potential complaint. "Sir, is there something I can help you with?" Jordan turned to face him fully. "I'm trying to understand your tip distribution policy. It seems like some servers get more than others, even when they handle similar amounts of business." "We run a performance-based system," Greg said smoothly. "Our top performers earn top compensation." "And how do you measure performance?" customer satisfaction, efficiency, attitude. Greg's smile was practiced but cold. If you have concerns about your service, I'm happy to address them. My service has been excellent, Jordan said, letting the compliment hang in the air. Especially from Maya. She's been outstanding. Greg's smile tightened. I'll pass along the feedback. Please do. Jordan returned to his booth, knowing he'd just painted a target on Maya's back, but unable to stay silent. He'd seen enough. More than enough. But he needed one more piece. Something so egregious that no one could deny the corruption. He got an hour later. A customer left Maya a $20 bill, placing it on the table with a smile and a thank you for excellent service. Maya picked it up gratefully, her whole face brightening. But before she could tuck it in her apron, Greg swooped in. House policy, he said, plucking the bill from her fingers. Tips go in the pool. Maya's shoulders slumped, but she nodded. Yes, sir. Jordan watched as Greg walked behind the counter, and instead of putting the 20 in the tip jar, he slipped it directly into his own pocket. That was it. The final piece. Jordan pulled out his phone and sent a message. Execute phase 2. I need the regional director here tomorrow morning. First thing. Don't tell them why. Just say it's urgent. He stood up, left another generous tip under his mug, and walked out of the diner. But this time, he didn't sit in his truck contemplating next moves. He drove directly to a hotel 3 blocks away, checked into a room, and spent the next 6 hours on phone calls and video conferences. His legal team reviewed the evidence. His HR director gasped audibly at the tip theft footage. His operations manager wanted to fire everyone immediately. No, Jordan said firmly. We do this right. We document everything. We follow procedure, and we make sure it's airtight. I want Greg and Rick gone, but I want them gone in a way that protects everyone else. By evening, the plan was set. Tomorrow morning, Jordan would return, but not as the quiet customer in the hoodie. Tomorrow, he'd walk in as the owner, and everything would change. He'd barely slept that night, his mind replaying every moment of the past 2 days. Every whisper, every dismissive comment, every time Maya's shoulders sagged under the weight of unfair treatment. He thought about Luis, scared to speak up because he needed the job for college. He thought about the other employees who'd learned to keep their heads down and survive rather than thrive. This wasn't just about fixing management problems. This was about restoring the soul of a place that had lost its way. The next morning, Jordan arrived at 7. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, a crisp white shirt, and polished shoes. His presence was unmistakable now, the bearing of someone who owned the space, not just occupied it. He carried a leather portfolio under one arm and walked through that jingling door with purpose. The morning shift was just starting. Maya stood at the hostess station reviewing the reservation book. She looked up at the sound of the bell and froze, her eyes widening as recognition crashed over her like a wave. You, she whispered. Jordan smiled gently. Good morning, Maya. Other staff members began to notice. Luis dropped a tub of dishes with a clatter. Celine stopped mid-sentence in a conversation with Rick. The morning cook turned from his griddle, confused by the sudden tension. Rick emerged from the kitchen, saw Jordan, and his face went from confusion to recognition to pale dread in the space of 3 seconds. Greg's office door opened. He stepped out, already speaking. What's all the commotion about? He stopped dead when he saw Jordan. The diner went absolutely silent. Jordan walked slowly to the center of the floor, his movements deliberate and calm. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Jordan Hale. I own this diner and 12 other locations across 3 states. He paused, letting that sink in. I've spent the past 2 days here as a customer, observing how you run my restaurant. Greg found his voice, though it came out strained. Mr. Hale, we didn't know you were coming. If you'd given us notice. That was the point, Jordan said quietly. I wanted to see what really happens here. And what I saw was deeply disturbing. Rick tried to back toward the kitchen. Jordan's gaze locked onto him. Rick, stay where you are. The cook froze. Jordan turned to Maya, who looked like she might faint. Maya, I need you to do something for me. I need you to take your break. Right now. Go sit in the back room and wait. I promise you, everything is about to change. I don't understand, she whispered. You will. Please. Go. Maya hesitated, then walked on shaky legs toward the break room. Jordan watched her go, making sure she was out of earshot before he continued. He turned back to Greg and Rick. Both of you, My office. Now, this is highly irregular, Greg started. If you have concerns, we should schedule a formal review. Now, Jordan repeated, his voice dropping to a tone that made it clear this wasn't a request. The two men exchanged glances, then followed Jordan toward the office. Every employee in the diner watched them go, the tension so thick it was almost visible. Jordan held the door open, waited for both men to enter, then stepped inside and closed it behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gavel falling. Inside the small office, Greg immediately tried to seize control. Mr. Hale, I can explain anything that might have seemed. Sit down. Greg and Rick sat. Jordan remained standing, his presence filling the cramped space. I'm going to tell you what I observed, Jordan said, his voice eerily calm. And you're going to listen. You're not going to interrupt, you're not going to make excuses, and you're not going to lie. Because I have evidence for everything I'm about to say. He placed his phone on the desk and pressed play. Greg's voice filled the office. I'll dock her hours. Slow workers don't get full pay. Then Rick's whisper. Table 9 ain't worth real service. Both men went pale. Jordan let the recordings play for another minute. A greatest hits compilation of corruption and cruelty. When it ended, he opened his portfolio and pulled out printed documents. This is Maya Coleman's official time card for last week, he said, sliding it across the desk. According to your reports, she worked 40 hours. But I have her actual clock in and clock out times from a biometric system, which can't be edited. She worked 54 hours. Someone manually adjusted her time card to reduce her pay. Greg opened his mouth. Jordan held up a hand. I also have security footage of you, Greg, taking tips directly from a jar and putting them in your pocket instead of the pool. 3 separate instances. I have footage of Rick using expired ingredients and tossing invoices that should have been submitted. I have testimony from multiple employees about scheduling manipulation, preferential treatment, and hostile work environment complaints that were never forwarded to corporate. He pulled out another stack of papers. I have 12 months of payroll records showing consistent discrepancies. I have customer feedback surveys that were never properly processed. And I have enough evidence of wage theft, food safety violations, and workplace discrimination to make both of your lives very, very difficult. Rick's hands were shaking. Greg's jaw worked soundlessly. Jordan leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I built this diner from nothing. Every table, every booth, every inch of this place represents years of my life when I worked 80-hour weeks and slept on a cot in the back. I built it on a promise that anyone who walked through that door, employee or customer, will be treated with dignity and respect. You turn it into a place where good people are afraid to speak up and bad behavior is rewarded. Mr. Hale, if you just let me explain, Greg tried. There's nothing to explain. I saw it with my own eyes. I heard it with my own ears. And now I'm going to fix it. Jordan pulled out 2 envelopes from his portfolio and placed them on the desk. These are termination letters. Effective immediately. You're done here. Both of you. Greg's face flushed red. You can't just fire me without cause. I'll sue for wrongful termination. Jordan smiled without humor. Please do. I welcome the discovery process. We'll subpoena every time card, every schedule, every tip jar transaction. We'll interview every employee under oath. We'll examine every decision you've made for the past 2 years. Go ahead and sue me, Greg. I promise you'll regret it. Rick found his voice, panicked now. I was just following orders. Greg told me to. Don't, Greg snapped. No, please continue, Jordan said to Rick. Tell me what Greg told you to do. Rick looked between them, trapped. Finally, he slumped in his chair. He said to give Maya the worst shifts and the worst tables. He said customers like pretty white waitresses better, so we should favor Celine. He said if we made Maya's job hard enough, she'd quit on her own and we wouldn't have to deal with her. Jordan turned to Greg. Is that true? Greg's silence was answer enough. That's what I thought. Jordan collected the termination letters and pushed them forward. You can leave quietly, or I can call the police and file formal complaints for theft and fraud. Your choice. Greg's hand slammed on the desk. This is ridiculous. You're making a huge mistake. If you fire me, you'll have no one to run this place. Jordan smiled. I'd rather run it myself than let you represent my name. He walked to the door and opened it. The entire staff stood in the dining room, pretending to work, but clearly listening. Jordan raised his voice slightly. Greg and Rick are no longer employed here. If they refuse to leave, I'll call security. Greg stood slowly, his face a mask of rage and humiliation. This isn't over. Yes, Jordan said quietly. It is. Greg and Rick walked through the diner in silence, every eye following them. When they reached the door, Rick turned back once, looking like he wanted to say something. But Jordan's expression stopped him cold. The door swung shut behind them, and the tension in the room shifted from fear to something else. Disbelief, hope, confusion. Jordan walked to the center of the dining room and raised his hands for attention. Everyone, please. I need you all to gather around. We have a lot to discuss. The staff slowly formed a semicircle. Maya emerged from the break room, her eyes red and her hands clutched in front of her. She stood at the edge of the group, uncertain and afraid. Jordan gestured for her to come closer. Maya, front and center, please. She shook her head slightly, but Luis gently nudged her forward. She took a few hesitant steps until she stood near Jordan, looking like she wanted to disappear. Jordan turned to address everyone. I owe all of you an apology. This diner operates under my name, which means everything that happens here is ultimately my responsibility. I trusted the wrong people to maintain the standards this place was built on. And because of that, some of you have suffered. That ends today. He could see the wheels turning in their heads. Fear, hope, uncertainty about whether this was real or just more empty promises from management. I spent 2 days watching how this place runs, Jordan continued. I saw good people working hard under terrible conditions. I saw talent being wasted and kindness being punished. I saw everything that's wrong with poor leadership, and I promise you, it's going to change. Celine spoke up, her voice small. Are we all going to be fired? No, Jordan said firmly. But we're going to have some honest conversations. I need to know what's really been happening here. I need to understand how deep these problems go. And I need you to trust that when you speak up, there won't be retaliation. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling my regional director. She'll be here within the hour to conduct interviews with anyone who wants to share their experience. Everything you say will be confidential. Your jobs are not at risk for telling the truth. Maya's voice came out barely above a whisper. Why did you pretend to be a regular customer? Jordan looked at her directly. Because I needed to see the truth. And sometimes the truth only shows itself when people think nobody's watching. He turned back to the group. Here's what's going to happen immediately. First, every time card for the past year will be audited. If anyone has been shorted hours or pay, you'll receive back pay with interest. Second, the tip pooling system is dissolved effective immediately. You keep your own tips, and any pool participation is voluntary with transparent distribution. Third, schedules will be posted 2 weeks in advance and cannot be changed without your consent, except in emergencies. The staff exchanged glances, hope beginning to overtake fear. Fourth, Jordan continued, we're implementing an anonymous reporting system that goes directly to corporate HR, not to local management. And fifth, everyone in this room is going to participate in comprehensive anti-discrimination and workplace conduct training, including me. Luis raised his hand tentatively. What about Maya? Jordan smiled. What about Maya? She's the best worker here. She should, I don't know, she should get something. Jordan turned to Maya, who looked mortified. You're right. She should. He faced Maya fully. You've been treated unfairly, discriminated against, and had your wages stolen. You would have every right to walk out this door and never come back. But I'm asking you to consider staying. Not as a server. As something more. Maya's eyes widened. I don't understand. I'm going to be spending the next few weeks here, personally overseeing the transition. I need someone who understands this place, who knows the customers, who has the respect of the staff. I need someone with integrity and work ethic. I need a leader. He paused. Would you consider training as the new floor manager? The diner went completely silent. Maya stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language. Me? She finally whispered. A manager? Yes, but I'm just a waitress. Jordan shook his head. You're a leader who's been serving tables. There's a difference. I watch you handle difficult customers, support your coworkers, and maintain grace under pressure that would break most people. Those are the qualities I need running this place. Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks. I don't know if I can. I do, Jordan said quietly, and I'll be here to help you learn everything you need to know. She covered her face with her hands, overwhelmed. The other employees began to applaud, first tentatively, then with genuine enthusiasm. Even Celine was clapping, tears in her own eyes. When the applause died down, Jordan addressed them again. This is going to be a process. Change doesn't happen overnight. But I promise you this, from now on, this diner operates the way it was meant to from the beginning. With respect, with fairness, with dignity for everyone. He looked around at the faces staring back at him. Some relieved, some still wary, all of them processing the earthquake that had just hit their workplace. We open for regular service in 30 minutes, Jordan said. Let's show our customers what this place can be when good people are empowered to do good work. As the staff dispersed to their stations, energy returning to the room, Maya approached Jordan. She was still crying, but her voice was stronger now. Why me? She asked. You could hire anyone. Jordan smiled. Because 2 days ago, I heard a whisper. Someone said I wasn't worth good service. And instead of believing them, you proved them wrong with every action, every kindness, every moment you chose dignity over bitterness. That's who I want leading my team. Maya wiped her eyes and, for the first time in days, smiled without fear behind it. Thank you. I won't let you down. I know you won't. Jordan watched her walk toward the other servers, already beginning to organize the floor for opening. He pulled out his phone and texted his assistant, crisis managed. Begin implementation of new policies across all locations. This won't happen again. He looked around his diner, the place where he'd started, where he'd learned that business was about people, not just profits. He'd almost lost sight of that, almost let his empire grow so large that he forgot the foundations it was built on. But a whisper behind a counter had brought him back. And now, everything would change. The first 3 days after the confrontation felt like living in a different world. Maya arrived each morning with a mixture of excitement and terror knotting in her stomach, still half convinced she'd walk through that door and discover everything had been a dream. But Jordan was always there, sitting in a booth with his laptop open, reviewing spreadsheets and making calls while keeping one eye on the dining room. He'd pulled her aside that first afternoon and laid out the training plan. We're going to do this right, he'd said, his voice patient and encouraging. You're going to shadow me for 2 weeks while I handle the management duties. You'll learn scheduling, inventory, vendor relations, customer service escalations, and staff development. Then we'll transition to you leading with me supporting. Sound good? Maya had nodded, though her hands were shaking. She'd never imagined herself as a manager. Never thought she was capable of anything beyond carrying plates and refilling coffee. But Jordan saw something in her she hadn't seen in herself, and that belief became the foundation she built on. The staff dynamics shifted almost immediately. Celine approached Maya on the second day, her eyes red from crying. I need to apologize, she'd said, her voice trembling. I knew what Greg was doing to you. I knew it was wrong, but I was scared that if I spoke up, he'd do the same thing to me. That doesn't make it right, and I'm so sorry. Maya had hugged her, feeling the weight of months of tension finally breaking apart. We all did what we had to do to survive. That's over now. We can start fresh. Luis had become Maya's unofficial assistant, helping her understand the systems she'd never had access to before. He showed her how the scheduling software worked, how to read the inventory reports, how to track sales patterns and labor costs. You're going to be great at this, he kept saying, and Maya wanted desperately to believe him. The regular customers noticed the change immediately. The atmosphere in the diner had transformed from tense and hurried to warm and welcoming. Servers smiled genuinely instead of forcing it. The kitchen crew called out orders with energy instead of resentment. Even the food seemed to taste better, though nothing about the recipes had changed. Mr. Carter, the elderly regular who'd witnessed months of Maya's mistreatment, came in for breakfast and found her reviewing schedules at the hostess stand. He'd squeezed her hand and said, "About time someone recognized what you're worth, young lady." Maya had to excuse herself to the back room to cry happy tears. Jordan spent hours teaching her the business side of restaurant management. He showed her how to read profit and loss statements, how to calculate food costs and labor percentages, how to forecast busy periods and adjust staffing accordingly. Maya absorbed everything like a sponge, staying late after her shifts to review materials and ask questions. You're a natural at this, Jordan told her one evening as they reviewed the week's numbers. You understand the most important thing about this business. It's not about food, it's about people. Everything else can be taught. But not everyone was happy about the changes. On the fourth morning, Maya arrived to find the front windows covered in spray paint. Ugly words in red, attacking Jordan, attacking her, threatening violence. Her stomach dropped as she pulled out her phone to call the police. But Jordan was already there, standing in front of the vandalism with his arms crossed. Greg, Maya asked quietly. Probably. Or someone he sent. Jordan's jaw was tight, but his voice remained calm. We'll get cleaned up. Security cameras caught everything. The police are on their way. Maya stared at the hateful words, feeling the familiar weight of fear trying to settle back on her shoulders. But this time, something was different. This time, she wasn't alone. This time, she had support. I'm not scared, she said, surprised to realize it was true. He can't hurt us anymore. Jordan smiled. No, he can't. And this just makes the restraining order case stronger. They spent the morning pressure washing the windows while police filed a report. Customers who arrived during the cleanup offered help, brought coffee, expressed outrage on their behalf. The community was rallying around them, protecting the diner that had finally become what it was meant to be. But Greg wasn't finished. 2 days later, a health inspector arrived unannounced. Maya's heart raced as she greeted him, knowing this had to be Greg's doing. But Jordan had anticipated this. He'd already hired a food safety consultant to audit their entire operation, had replaced every questionable piece of equipment, had implemented new protocols that exceeded code requirements. The inspector walked through every inch of the kitchen, checked every temperature, examined every storage area. When he finished, he actually looked disappointed. Everything's in perfect order, he admitted, signing off on a flawless report. Best I've seen in months, actually. Jordan thanked him politely, and as the inspector left, he turned to Maya with a grin. Never give your enemies ammunition. We're going to run this place so well that nobody can find anything to criticize. The next challenge came that weekend during the lunch rush. The diner was packed, every table full, and the kitchen was pushing out orders as fast as possible. Maya was coordinating the floor, moving between sections to make sure everyone had what they needed when the espresso machine exploded. Not literally, but close. Steam hissed from a broken valve, water sprayed across the counter, and the machine made a grinding sound that suggested imminent death. Without espresso drinks, they'd lose half their beverage sales and disappoint dozens of customers. Maya's first instinct was panic, but Jordan's training kicked in. She called the repair company, explained the emergency, negotiated a 2-hour response time instead of the standard 4. Then she addressed the customers waiting for coffee drinks. Folks, our espresso machine just died on us, she announced, her voice carrying across the dining room. We've got regular coffee, tea, and cold drinks available. For everyone who is waiting on specialty coffee, your meal today is 50% off, and when our machine is fixed, come back for a free drink on us. The customers, charmed by her honesty and the generous offer, actually applauded. Crisis handled. Jordan watched the whole thing from his booth, pride evident on his face. When Maya caught his eye, he gave her a subtle thumbs up. She was becoming the leader he knew she could be. But the biggest test came on day 7, when Rick tried to sabotage the walk-in freezer. Luis had been taking out trash around 11 at night when he spotted a figure near the back door. His instinct screamed danger, so instead of confronting whoever it was, he pulled out his phone and started recording. The video showed Rick clearly, using a screwdriver to damage the freezer's temperature control system. Thousands of dollars in food would spoil overnight, leaving the diner unable to operate the next day. Luis called Jordan immediately. Within 20 minutes, Jordan was there with building security. They caught Rick red-handed, the broken thermostat in his hand, surrounded by evidence of deliberate vandalism. Rick tried to run. He made it maybe 10 feet before security tackled him in the parking lot. The police arrived shortly after and arrested him on charges of breaking and entering, criminal mischief, and attempted destruction of property. Maya arrived just as they were putting Rick in the squad car. She'd gotten Luis's text and rushed over in her pajamas, terrified that everything they'd built was about to collapse. But instead, she found Jordan calmly giving a statement to the police while a refrigeration specialist worked to repair the damage. Is the food okay? Maya asked, breathless. Luis caught him before he could finish, Jordan said. We'll lose maybe $100 worth of stock. Everything else is fine. And Rick just upgraded his charges from civil complaints to criminal offenses. Maya looked at Luis, who stood nervously by his car. She walked over and hugged him fiercely. You saved us. You know that, right? You saved this whole place. Luis's face flushed with pride. Just did what anyone would do. No, Jordan said, joining them. You did what a loyal team member does. Someone who cares about more than just a paycheck. He paused, then added, how would you feel about a promotion? Assistant manager, working directly under Maya? Luis's eyes went wide. Are you serious? Dead serious. You've proven you have the judgment and commitment we need. Maya needs someone she can trust to help run this place. Interested? Yes. Absolutely yes. Maya grinned through exhausted tears. Her team was growing. Her confidence was building. And the diner was not just surviving, it was thriving. The next morning, word of Rick's arrest spread through the breakfast rush like wildfire. Customers who heard the story left extra generous tips and words of encouragement. The staff worked with renewed energy, knowing that the people who'd made their lives miserable were finally facing real consequences. Jordan pulled Maya aside during a lull. I need to talk to you about something. Her heart jumped. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. The opposite, actually. He showed her his laptop screen, displaying spreadsheet after spreadsheet of numbers. Our sales are up 32% since the changes. Customer satisfaction scores have jumped from 68 to 94. Employee retention is perfect. Nobody's quit, and we've had 5 applications for positions we haven't even posted. Maya, you're not just maintaining this place. You're transforming it. Maya stared at the numbers, hardly believing what she was seeing. That's really us. That's really you. You've created an environment where people want to work and customers want to visit. That's the hardest thing to achieve in this business, and you did it in a week. We did it, Maya corrected. I couldn't have done any of this without you teaching me. But I won't always be here, Jordan said gently. That's why I need to know you're ready. Because in about a week, I need to get back to my other locations. And this place needs to run without me. Fear flickered through Maya's chest, but it was different now. Not the paralyzing terror of before, but the nervous excitement of someone about to step fully into their own power. I think I'm ready. I'm still scared, but I think I can do this. I know you can, and I'll still be a phone call away anytime you need me. Over the following days, Jordan gradually stepped back, letting Maya take the lead more and more. She handled a food delivery dispute, negotiated better terms with their produce supplier, interviewed candidates for an open line cook position. Each success built her confidence a little more. The staff began naturally turning to her first with questions and concerns. When Celine had a family emergency and needed to adjust her schedule, she came to Maya. When a morning hostess suggested a new seating system that could improve table turnover, she pitched it to Maya. When a customer had a complaint about undercooked chicken, they asked for Maya. She was becoming what she was always meant to be, a leader who inspired loyalty through fairness and competence rather than demanding it through fear. On Maya's 10th day as manager in training, the diner experienced its busiest Saturday in over a year. Every table full, a waiting list at the door, the kitchen firing on all cylinders. It was controlled chaos, the kind of high-pressure situation that revealed what someone was really made of. Maya directed traffic like a conductor leading an orchestra. She jumped into bus tables when Luis got overwhelmed. She expedited orders in the kitchen when tickets started backing up. She handled a difficult customer who'd been waiting 20 minutes for a table with such grace that he ended up thanking her for the wait and leaving a glowing review online. Jordan watched from his usual booth, barely touching his coffee, just observing. This was her final test, though she didn't know it. Could she handle pressure? Could she keep her cool when everything was falling apart? Could she lead? She could. She did. She was magnificent. When the rush finally ended and the last customer left, the staff gathered around Maya, exhausted and exhilarated. They just crushed their sales record. Every single table had been satisfied, and nobody had quit or cried or hidden in the walk-in freezer. That was incredible, Celine said, practically glowing. We were like a machine. We were a team, Maya corrected, and the pride in her voice made Jordan's chest tighten with emotion. He stood up from his booth and walked over. Maya, can I talk to you outside for a minute? They stepped into the parking lot, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. Jordan turned to face her, his expression serious. You passed, he said simply. Passed what? The test. Today was your final exam, and you aced it. You're ready. Maya's eyes widened. You mean? I mean starting Monday. You're officially the floor manager of this location. Full salary, benefits, profit sharing, and complete authority over daily operations. This is your diner now. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. Jordan, I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep making this place better. Say you'll treat every employee with the respect and dignity you deserved but never got. Say you'll build the kind of team you always wanted to be part of. I promise. All of that. I promise. Jordan pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. This is your official offer letter and contract. Take the weekend to read through it. Have a lawyer look at it if you want. We'll make it official on Monday. Maya took the envelope with shaking hands. She wanted to open it immediately, but Jordan stopped her. There's one more thing inside. Something I want you to think about carefully. What is it? Open it later, when you're alone and can really process it. But know this, you've earned every opportunity I'm giving you. This isn't charity. This isn't pity. This is recognition of your talent, your character, and your potential. Maya hugged him then, impulsively and tightly, not caring if it was professional or appropriate. Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for changing my life. Jordan hugged her back, feeling the weight of responsibility and pride. He'd come to this diner chasing whispers and found something far more valuable, proof that good people still existed and that they just needed someone to give them a chance. That evening, after Jordan left, Maya sat alone in a booth with the envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it and pulled out the contract. The salary made her gasp, more than double what she'd been making, plus quarterly bonuses tied to performance metrics. Health insurance that covered her grandmother's medications. Paid vacation time, a clear path for advancement. But underneath the contract was another document. A letter, handwritten, in Jordan's careful script. Maya, it began when I built this diner 15 years ago. I had a vision of what hospitality could be. Somewhere that treated people like family. Somewhere that gave opportunities to those who earned them. Somewhere that measured success not just in profits, but in lives changed. I lost sight of that vision. Got too big, too busy, too distant from the foundations I built on. But you reminded me why I started this in the first place. Enclosed is an additional document, an option agreement. Over the next 5 years, if you continue to perform at the level you've already shown, you'll have the opportunity to buy majority ownership of this location. I'll help you with financing. I'll mentor you through the transition. And eventually, this diner will have your name on the deed instead of mine. You're not just an employee. You're the future of what I built. Don't let anyone ever tell you different. Jordan. Maya read the letter 3 times, then pressed it to her chest and sobbed. Happy tears, overwhelmed tears, tears of relief and joy and disbelief that her life could change so dramatically in less than 2 weeks. She thought about her grandmother, who'd sacrificed so much to raise her. She thought about all the times she'd felt invisible, worthless, like nothing she did mattered. She thought about the whisper that had started everything. Table 9 ain't worth good service, and how wrong that assessment had been. She pulled out her phone and took a picture of the letter, then sent it to her grandmother with a message. We're going to be okay. Better than okay. Everything's going to be okay now. The response came back immediately. I always knew you were special. So proud of you, baby girl. Maya stayed in that booth for another hour, planning and dreaming and imagining a future she'd never dared hope for. She thought about the employees she'd lead, the customers she'd serve, the legacy she'd build. She thought about Luis getting to finish college without drowning in debt. She thought about Celine having a supportive boss instead of a hostile one. She thought about all the future Mayas who might walk through that door and find opportunity instead of oppression. When she finally locked up and walked to her car, the diner's neon sign glowed behind her like a beacon. This place had broken her down and built her back up. It had tested her, hurt her, and ultimately transformed her into someone stronger than she'd ever imagined. Monday morning arrived with brilliant sunshine and nervous energy crackling through Maya's entire body. She wore a new outfit, professional slacks, and a blazer she'd bought specially for the occasion. When she arrived at the diner, Jordan was already there, along with a few people she didn't recognize. Maya, These are the regional trainers who'll be working with our entire management team on the new protocols. They'll be here for the next week to make sure everything's documented and standardized. Maya shook hands with each trainer, feeling more legitimate and professional than she ever had in her life. This was real. This was happening. She was actually doing this. The staff arrived, and Jordan called everyone together one more time. I want to officially introduce you to your new floor manager, Maya Coleman. She has my complete confidence and full authority. What she says goes, and if anyone has a problem with that, they can take it up with me directly. The employees applauded, genuinely, warmly, celebrating one of their own rising up. Maya felt tears threatening again, but blinked them back. She needed to be strong now, to show them she could handle this responsibility. Thank you all, Maya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I know this has been a weird couple of weeks, but I promise you, we're going to build something special here. We're going to be the kind of place where people love to work and customers love to visit, where everyone gets treated fairly and has room to grow. That's my promise to you. More applause. Louise Guisev. Even Celine had tears in her eyes. Jordan stepped back, literally and figuratively, letting Maya take center stage. This was her moment, her team, her diner. He'd done what he came to do, fix what was broken and elevated someone who deserved elevation. Throughout the day, he watched her work with growing confidence. She handled a vendor delivery issue with professionalism. She coached a new server through their first rush. She caught a potential food safety problem before it became critical. Every decision was thoughtful. Every interaction was kind. Every move was that of a true leader. By closing time, Jordan knew she didn't need him anymore. The training wheels were off. She was ready to fly. He found her in the office, reviewing the day's numbers with satisfaction on her face. Hey, he said softly. Got a minute? Of course. Maya looked up, smiling. What's up? I'm leaving tomorrow, heading back to corporate. You've got this, and I need to make sure my other locations are running properly. Maya's smile faltered for just a moment. You're leaving? I have to, but I'll call you every day this week. I'll visit every Friday for the next month. And my phone is always on if you need anything. I'm going to miss having you here. You won't miss me for long. You're going to be too busy being amazing. They hugged, this time a longer embrace of mutual respect and gratitude. When they pulled apart, Jordan noticed the envelope sitting on the desk. The option agreement. You read everything? He asked. About 100 times. And Maya smiled, and it was the most confident expression Jordan had ever seen on her face. And I'm going to earn it. Every bit of it. I'm going to make this diner something special. Something that matters. It already is, Jordan said quietly. Because of you. The next morning, Jordan packed up his laptop and the few personal items he'd kept in the office. Maya walked him to his car, the early light casting a golden glow over the parking lot. This is weird, Maya admitted, saying goodbye to someone who changed my entire life. Not goodbye. See you later. Jordan opened his car door, then paused. Maya, I need you to understand something. What happened here, what you accomplished, it wasn't just about fixing a broken diner. You proved that giving people a real chance, treating them with dignity, believing in their potential, that's what creates success. Not fear, not manipulation, not grinding people down until they break. I'll remember that. Make sure you do, because someday you'll have the opportunity to change someone else's life the way I changed yours. Don't waste it. Maya nodded, emotion thick in her throat. I won't. I promise. Jordan climbed into his car, started the engine, and rolled down the window. One more thing. That whisper I heard that first day. Table 9 ain't worth good service. Remember that whenever you doubt yourself, you proved every single person wrong who ever underestimated you. Don't ever forget what you're capable of. He drove away slowly, watching Maya in his rearview mirror. She stood in the parking lot, her hand raised in farewell, looking every inch the capable leader she'd become. As Jordan merged onto the highway, heading toward his next challenge, his phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Thank you for clearing the path. I'll make you proud. He smiled and typed back. You already have. The diner behind him glowed in the morning sun, no longer a place of whispers and fear, but a beacon of what was possible when good people were given real chances. Maya would face new challenges, make mistakes, learn and grow. But Jordan had no doubt she'd succeed, because she'd already survived the worst. Everything else would be easy in comparison. And somewhere, in some future morning meeting, Maya would tell the story of a customer who ordered toast and changed everything. She'd inspire her own employees to look deeper, to treat people better, to never judge someone's worth by the price of their breakfast order. The legacy would continue, spreading outward in ripples Jordan might never see, but would always feel proud of creating. That whisper behind the counter had started everything. But Maya's voice, confident, kind, and full of possibility, would be what carried it forward. 3 months had passed since Jordan drove away from the diner, and Maya barely recognized the person she'd been before. She arrived each morning with purpose instead of dread, walked through those doors with her head high instead of braced for criticism. The transformation wasn't just hers. It had spread through every corner of the building, touching every person who worked there. The diner hummed with energy that felt almost tangible. Servers moved with efficiency born of confidence rather than fear. The kitchen crew called out orders with pride in their work. Even the customers seemed to linger longer, savoring not just their meals, but the atmosphere that made them feel genuinely welcome. Maya stood at the hostess station reviewing the week's schedule on the tablet Jordan had provided, making sure everyone had their preferred shifts and that coverage was solid for the upcoming holiday weekend. This was her favorite part of management, creating schedules that worked for her team instead of against them. Luis approached with a clipboard, his assistant manager badge gleaming on his uniform. "Morning, boss." Inventory came in early, and I already checked everything against the invoices. We're short 3 cases of tomatoes, so I called the supplier, and they're sending the rest this afternoon. Maya smiled at his thoroughness. "Perfect. Did you approve the time-off requests I forwarded you?" "All set. Celine's got her daughter's recital covered, and Marcus can take his certification exam next Tuesday without worrying about his shift." "Excellent work." Maya made a note on her tablet. "How are you feeling about running the floor solo this Saturday? I need to meet with the accountant about the quarterly reports." Luis's eyes widened slightly, but excitement quickly replaced nervousness. "I can handle it. We've got a strong team." "You do, and you're ready for this." Maya squeezed his shoulder. "Trust yourself the way I trust you." As Luis headed back to prep work, Maya felt a surge of pride. Watching him grow from a scared busboy into a confident leader reminded her of her own journey. This was what good management looked like, creating opportunities for others to rise. The morning rush started smoothly. Tables filled with regulars and new faces alike, drawn by word-of-mouth recommendations and glowing online reviews. Mr. Carter took his usual spot at the counter, greeting Maya with his customary warmth. "Place gets better every time I come in," he said, accepting his coffee from Celine. "You've done something special here, young lady." "We all did it together," Maya replied, but the compliment still made her glow inside. Business had indeed exploded. Revenue was up 58% from the previous year. Employee turnover had dropped to 0. Nobody wanted to leave. They'd received recognition from the local Chamber of Commerce and been featured in a regional food magazine. But more importantly, the diner had become what Jordan always intended it to be, a place where dignity and excellence went hand in hand. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Jordan. "How's my favorite manager doing?" She smiled and typed back, "Crushing it as usual." "How's the expansion going?" "On track. New location opens next month. Wish you could be there for the ribbon cutting. Send pictures. I'll be there in spirit." Their weekly calls had gradually spaced out to texts and occasional video chats, but Maya never felt abandoned. Jordan had given her the tools and the confidence to succeed, and she was proving every day that his faith had been well placed. The lunch rush brought a new challenge. A party of 12 walked in without a reservation, and the dining room was already near capacity. The old Maya would have panicked. The new Maya saw it as an opportunity. "Luis, can you push tables 7 and 8 together? Celine, grab Emily to help with drinks. I'll take their orders personally and make sure the kitchen knows it's a priority ticket." Maya moved through the solution with practiced ease, and within 15 minutes, the large party was seated, served, and grateful for the accommodation. One of the guests, a woman in her 50s wearing a business suit, asked to speak with the manager before leaving. Maya approached with a professional smile, prepared for either a compliment or a complaint. "I'm Maya Coleman, the floor manager. How is everything today?" The woman extended her hand. "Jennifer Mitchell. I own 4 restaurants downtown, and I've been watching this place's transformation over the past few months. I wanted to meet the person responsible. Maya shook her hand, surprised. Thank you. It's been a team effort. Don't be modest. I know talent when I see it. Jennifer handed Maya a business card. I'm always looking for exceptional managers. If you ever want to discuss opportunities, give me a call. Maya took the card politely, though she had no intention of leaving. I appreciate the offer, but I'm exactly where I want to be. Jennifer smiled knowingly. That's what makes you valuable. Keep doing what you're doing. As Jennifer left, Maya tucked the card into her pocket and felt a strange sense of validation. People were noticing. Her work was recognized beyond just this diner. She'd become the kind of professional others wanted to recruit. That evening, as Maya locked up, her phone rang. Jordan's name flashed on the screen. Hey, she answered. Everything okay? More than okay. I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come to corporate headquarters this weekend? I'll fly you out, put you up in a nice hotel. There's something I want to show you. Maya's heart raced. Is something wrong with the diner? Nothing's wrong. The opposite. Just trust me on this. Can you make it Saturday? I'll have Louise cover. What's this about? You'll see. Book a flight and send me the receipt. I'll reimburse everything. And Maya? Dress nice. This is important. The call ended, leaving Maya both excited and nervous. Jordan wouldn't summon her across the state without a good reason. She spent the next 2 days making sure Luis had everything he needed to run the diner solo, going over every possible scenario and contingency plan. You're micromanaging, Luis teased on Friday afternoon. I've got this. Go find out what the big mystery is. Maya hugged him impulsively. You're going to do great. Call me if anything. I won't need to call. But if it makes you feel better, I'll text you updates every few hours. That works. Saturday morning, Maya boarded a plane wearing her best blazer and the most professional outfit she owned. The flight felt surreal. She'd never traveled for business before, never been flown somewhere for a meeting. Everything about her life still felt like a dream she might wake up from. A car service picked her up at the airport and drove her to a gleaming high-rise in the heart of downtown. The corporate offices of Hale Enterprises occupied 3 floors of modern elegance, glass walls, contemporary furniture, and an energy that buzzed with success. Jordan met her in the lobby, looking every inch the CEO in a sharp suit. But his smile was warm and familiar. There's my star manager. They hugged, and Maya felt some of her nervousness ease. Whatever this was, Jordan had her back. He led her to a conference room where several other people waited, executives, lawyers, and faces Maya didn't recognize. Her anxiety spiked again. Everyone, this is Maya Coleman, floor manager of our flagship location and one of the finest leaders in our organization. Jordan gestured to the seats. Maya, please sit. We have a lot to discuss. For the next hour, they walked Maya through numbers, projections, and business plans. The diner's success had become a case study within the company. Other locations were implementing the management practices Maya had developed. Customer satisfaction across the entire chain had improved because of policies she'd pioneered. Your location isn't just profitable, one executive explained. It's our highest performing store by every metric. Revenue, customer retention, employee satisfaction, community engagement. You've set a new standard. Maya listened, overwhelmed. She'd known things were going well, but seeing it laid out in corporate presentations made the achievement feel massive. Jordan stood and walked to the front of the room. Maya, when I gave you that option agreement 3 months ago, I outlined a 5-year pathway to ownership. Do you remember the performance metrics required? Yes. Sustained profitability, customer satisfaction above 90, employee retention, community standing, and successful management of crisis situations. That's right. Those metrics were designed to ensure you were ready for ownership responsibility. Jordan paused, his expression serious. You've hit every single benchmark in 3 months instead of 5 years. Maya's breath caught. What does that mean? Jordan slid a folder across the table. It means we're accelerating the timeline. If you're ready, we'd like to move forward with transferring majority ownership to you now. The room spun. Maya gripped the edge of the table, trying to process what she was hearing. Now? But I assumed it would take years. It was supposed to, but you've exceeded every expectation. The diner is yours, Maya, if you want it. Tears blurred her vision. She opened the folder with shaking hands, and saw page after page of legal documents, financial projections, and transfer agreements. Her name, typed officially on contracts that would make her the owner of the business she transformed. "I don't understand," she whispered. "How can I afford this?" "The financing, the down payment." "Already handled," Jordan said gently. "I'm financing it at below market rates with payments structured around your profit share. You'll pay me back over time, but the diner operates as yours immediately. Full control, full authority, full ownership." "But why? Why would you do this?" Jordan sat down beside her, his voice soft but firm. "Because 3 months ago, I walked into that diner and heard someone say you weren't worth good service. And you proved every single day since then that you're worth everything. You're not just a good manager, Maya. You're the embodiment of what I wanted that place to be. And I'd rather see it in your hands, thriving under your leadership, than keep it as another number in my portfolio." Maya couldn't speak, couldn't process the enormity of what was happening. She'd gone from serving toast for minimum wage to owning the restaurant in less than 4 months. One of the lawyers spoke up. "Ms. Coleman, you don't have to decide today. Take the documents home, review them with your own attorney, make sure you understand." "I'll sign now," Maya interrupted, her voice stronger than she expected. "I don't need time to think about it. This is everything I never knew I wanted." For the next 2 hours, Maya signed document after document, initialing pages, agreeing to terms, officially becoming a business owner. Her hands cramped from writing, but she never stopped smiling. When the last signature was complete, the room erupted in applause. Jordan pulled out champagne, and they toasted to new beginnings. "To Maya," Jordan said, raising his glass. "May your success inspire others the way it's inspired me." "To second chances," Maya added, her voice thick with emotion. "And to people who see potential instead of problems." They flew her home first class that evening. Maya spent the entire flight staring at the ownership documents, still not quite believing they were real. She'd left home as a manager. She was returning as an owner. Luis picked her up at the airport, practically bouncing with excitement. "Well, what was the big meeting about?" Maya handed him the folder. He opened it, scanned the first page, and his jaw dropped. "Oh my God, Maya, you own it? You actually own the diner." "I actually own the diner." Luis hooped so loudly that other travelers turned to stare. He didn't care. He hugged Maya tight and spun her around like they were in a movie. "This is incredible. Wait until everyone hears." "Not yet," Maya said quickly. "I need to tell them the right way. Tomorrow morning, before we open. Can you get everyone there at 6? "I'll make sure of it." The next morning, Maya arrived at 5:30 to find her entire staff already waiting. Luis had told them something important was happening, and curiosity had brought them in early. Maya stood in the center of the dining room, looking at the faces of people who'd become family. Celine, who'd apologized and grown into a trusted colleague. Emily and Marcus, the newer hires who'd only known the good version of this place. The kitchen crew who'd learned to take pride in their work again. And Luis, her right hand and loyal friend. "Thank you all for coming in early," Maya began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I have some news to share. Yesterday, I traveled to corporate headquarters for a meeting with Jordan and the executive team. Everyone leaned forward, anticipation building. Jordan gave me an option agreement 3 months ago, a pathway to eventually own this diner. That pathway was supposed to take 5 years. She paused, letting the tension build. But based on our performance, our growth, and what we've built together, they've decided to accelerate the timeline. Celine gasped. "Does that mean?" "It means, as of yesterday, I am officially the majority owner of this restaurant." The room exploded. Cheers, applause, tears, and hugs flowed freely. Luis lifted Maya off her feet again, and this time she laughed so hard she cried. The kitchen crew came out and joined the celebration, everyone talking at once, sharing excitement and pride. When the noise finally settled, Maya raised her hands for attention. "This isn't just my success. It's ours. Every one of you contributed to this. Your hard work, your dedication, your willingness to trust me when I was figuring things out. That's what made this possible." "Speech," someone called out, and others joined in. Maya took a breath, gathering her thoughts. "When I started here 14 months ago, I was just trying to survive. I worked doubles to pay my grandmother's medical bills. I accepted mistreatment because I needed the money. I let people make me feel small because I didn't believe I deserved better. The room went quiet, everyone listening intently. Then Jordan walked in and saw something I couldn't see in myself. He saw potential. He saw leadership. He saw someone worth investing in. And because he believed in me, I started believing in myself. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't wipe them away. I'm standing here as a business owner because someone gave me a chance. And I promise you, I will spend the rest of my career giving chances to others. No one who works here will ever feel invisible again. No one will be judged by what they order or where they come from. Everyone gets respect, opportunity, and fair treatment. The applause was deafening. When it finally died down, Maya had one more announcement. There's one more thing. Luis, can you come up here? Luis approached nervously, unsure what was happening. Luis, you've been my partner through this entire transformation. You've grown from a scared busboy into an exceptional assistant manager. You've earned my trust and the respect of everyone here. Maya pulled an envelope from her pocket. I'd like to offer you a promotion to general manager, with a stake in the business's profit sharing and a pathway to partial ownership if you want it. Luis's hands flew to his mouth. Are you serious? Completely serious. I can't do this alone, and I can't think of anyone I'd rather have beside me. He hugged her fiercely, then pulled back laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, obviously yes. Thank you, Maya. Thank you so much. The celebration continued for another 20 minutes before Maya finally shooed everyone to their stations to prep for opening. As they dispersed, still buzzing with excitement, Celine approached Maya privately. Can I ask you something? Celine's voice was tentative. Of course. Do you forgive me? For how I treated you before? I know I apologized, but I need to know if you really forgive me. Maya took her hands. I forgave you the moment you asked. We all did what we had to do to survive back then. What matters is who we choose to be now. Celine nodded, tears spilling over. I want to be better. I want to be the kind of person you are. Then be that. Every day, choose kindness. Choose fairness. Choose to lift people up instead of tearing them down. That's all it takes. As opening time approached, Maya did one final walkthrough. She touched the counter where Rick used to stand sneering. She passed the office where Greg had threatened and belittled her. She stood in the spot where Jordan had first sat, disguised as a customer, watching everything fall apart so he could build it back better. This place had broken her, and then it had remade her into something stronger. The bell above the door jingled as the first customer entered. Mr. Carter, right on time as always, with his warm smile and familiar presence. Morning, Ms. Owner, he said with a wink. Louise called me last night with the news. I wanted to be your first customer on your first official day. Maya's eyes welled up again. You've been coming here since before I started. Thank you for always being kind to me, even when others weren't. You deserve kindness. You always did. He settled onto his stool. And I'm proud to say I knew you when. Going to be telling everyone that the owner of this fine establishment served me coffee back when she was just starting out. I'll always remember where I came from, Maya promised. The day unfolded with beautiful normalcy. Orders came and went. Customers enjoyed their meals. The staff worked like the well-oiled machine they'd become. But everything felt different to Maya now. She wasn't just managing someone else's business anymore. She was building her own legacy. Late that afternoon, a black sedan pulled into the parking lot. Maya watched through the window as Jordan stepped out, wearing jeans and a casual shirt instead of his usual suit. He walked in, and the bell's jingle made several staff members turn and smile in recognition. Boss man's here, Louise called out good-naturedly. Former boss man, Jordan corrected with a grin. I'm just a visitor now. He found Maya at the hostess stand and pulled her into a hug. Congratulations, owner. How does it feel? Terrifying. Amazing. Surreal. All of it at once. That's exactly right. Jordan glanced around the diner, taking in the bustling lunch crowd and happy staff. This place looks even better than when I left. We've made some changes. Want to see? For the next hour, Maya walked Jordan through everything they'd implemented. New menu items developed with input from the kitchen crew. A loyalty program that customers loved. A partnership with a local food bank to donate and use ingredients. Staff training programs that Luis had helped design. Every innovation made Jordan's smile grow wider. You're not just running this place, he said finally. You're revolutionizing it. I made the right choice. They sat in a booth, coffee between them, talking like old friends rather than former employer and employee. "Can I tell you something?" Maya said quietly. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. I wake up thinking I'm going to come in and find Greg and Rick behind the counter, and everything will have been a dream. It's not a dream. You earned every bit of this. But what if I mess up? What if I make a bad decision and everything falls apart?" Jordan leaned forward. "Then you'll learn from it and make a better decision next time. That's what leadership is, not being perfect, but being willing to grow. You've already proven you can do that." "I'm scared," Maya admitted. "Not of failing, but of letting down everyone who believed in me. That fear will make you a great owner, because you'll always care more about your people than your profits. That's the secret to real success." They talked until the dinner shift began, and finally Jordan stood to leave. At the door, he turned back one more time. "Maya, do you remember what I told you the day I left? You said that someday I'd have the chance to change someone else's life the way you changed mine. That's right. Promise me you'll do that. Promise me you'll look for the people everyone else overlooks. Give chances to those who need them. Build something bigger than just a successful business." "I promise," Maya said solemnly. "I'll pay it forward. Every single day." Jordan nodded, satisfied. Then he walked out to his car and drove away, leaving Maya standing in the doorway of her diner, watching the evening sun paint the sky in shades of gold. 6 months later, the diner's reputation had spread far beyond the local community. Food critics praised the quality and consistency. Business journals wrote articles about Maya's leadership philosophy. Other restaurant owners came to study her management techniques. But Maya's proudest moment came on a quiet Tuesday morning when a young woman walked in looking nervous and hopeful. She approached Maya at the counter with a folded resume in her trembling hands. "I saw you're hiring," the woman said softly. She was maybe 23, with tired eyes and worn clothes. "I know I don't have much experience, but I'm a hard worker. I just need someone to give me a chance." Maya saw herself in that young woman, saw the desperation, the determination, the potential everyone else might overlook. She smiled warmly and extended her hand. "I'm Maya, the owner. What's your name?" "Sarah." "Well, Sarah, why don't you sit down and tell me about yourself? I believe in giving chances to people who want to work hard." As Sarah's face lit up with hope, Maya felt the full circle of her journey complete itself. She'd been that desperate applicant once. She'd been overlooked, underestimated, judged before anyone knew her story. Now she was the one with the power to change lives. And she would, every single day, for as long as she owned this diner. Because a whisper behind a counter had changed everything for her. And she'd never forget where she came from, or who she'd be without someone believing she was worth more than the price of her breakfast order. The diner's neon sign glowed in the window, warm and welcoming. Inside, staff worked with pride and customers felt like family. The checkered floors still gleamed. The red vinyl booths still held generations of stories. But the atmosphere had transformed completely. This wasn't just a place to eat anymore. It was a place where dignity lived, where second chances thrived, where whispers of doubt got drowned out by the roar of opportunity. Maya Coleman's Diner. Not because her name was on the building yet, though someday it would be, but because her values, her vision, and her heart had remade every inch of it. And in a booth near the window, a customer nobody would expect sat down and ordered something simple. Maya approached with a genuine smile, ready to serve them with the same excellence she'd once provided while being treated as worthless. Because she remembered. She would always remember. And she would never, ever let anyone feel invisible in her restaurant again. When someone whispers that you're not worth their time, do you shrink to fit their expectations, or do you rise to prove them devastatingly wrong? If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more incredible stories of justice, redemption, and people who refuse to stay silent.